I always thought that my marriage to Laura was solid. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never doubted our love for each other. We were together for nearly 8 years, and I figured we'd face whatever life threw at us. I worked hard, kept my head down, and did my best to provide for us. Laura was the light in my life, the one who made the mundane feel special, or so I thought. Lately, though, things felt off. It wasn't anything I could pinpoint at first, just this nagging feeling in the back of my mind. She started coming home later and later from work, claiming meetings that would stretch on for hours. I noticed she was more secretive with her phone. She would always turn it face down when we were together, and her texts seemed to be more frequent but never allowed me to look over her shoulder. When I asked about it, she'd roll her eyes and tell me that I was being paranoid, but my gut told me otherwise. One evening, I came home after a long day at work, and Laura was in the shower, her phone sitting on the kitchen counter. I don't know what made me pick it up. It wasn't like me to invade her privacy like that, but curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at her messages, and there it was. The telltale signs of infidelity. Flirty conversations with a guy named Mike filled the screen. She called him babe and talked about how excited she was for their secret rendezvous. My heart dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't breathe. I shoved the phone back down and paced around the living room trying to process what I just saw. How could she do this to me? After everything we built together, the anger boiled inside me and I wasn't even sure how I was going to confront her. When she got out of the shower, I waited until she was dressed and comfortable before I confronted her. I tried to keep my tone steady, but I could feel my hands shaking. "Laura, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep it calm. She looked up from her phone, which she had just picked up, and with a smirk said, "What's the drama now?" That smart-ass attitude was. Red flag. I took a deep breath. I saw the messages I know about Mike. Her face immediately shifted from casual annoyance to outright panic. "What are you talking about? That's ridiculous." She was good at denial, I had to give her that, but I had the evidence right there. "You think I'm stupid? I saw you, I saw everything." Her eyes darted around looking for a way out. "It's not what you think, he's just a friend. You know I'm stressed at work and sometimes I just need someone to talk to." The excuses just kept rolling off her tongue. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, but I also sensed a flicker of sadness. I had trusted this woman with everything, and here she was, lying straight to my face. "You're saying that you call him babe and talk about meeting up just for fun. Is that what you call it?" I couldn't help but raise my voice. Her responses turned into a mix of incoherent excuses and half-truths. It was like a bad movie, and I was stuck watching it play out. "You don't understand. I've been unhappy for a while. I thought you didn't care." I'd never seen her like this, so defensive, so unremorseful. It felt like I was talking to a completely different person. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her until she realized what a horrible mess she had created. But instead, I felt numb. I was more hurt than angry, but I couldn't let her see that. When she finally fell silent, I made a decision. I wouldn't let her keep playing games with me. If she wanted to throw away our life together, I'd beat her to the punch. I'd take control of this situation and not let her dictate the terms. I'd file for divorce, and I'd do it on my terms. I would gather proof of her infidelity just in case. As I walked away, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. I might have been crushed, but I wasn't defeated. There was power in knowing the truth. And I would make sure she wouldn't get away with this betrayal. How naive I had been to think love was enough. It wasn't just about love. It was about mutual respect and honesty, neither of which she seemed to care about anymore. The days that followed my confrontation with Laura felt like walking through a thick fog. I was stuck somewhere between anger and disbelief, replaying the moments of our life together in my mind like an old, worn-out movie. I couldn't focus on work. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I kept replaying her words in my head, each lie hitting me like tiny daggers. After that night, Laura put on a show for the house. She acted as if nothing had happened, going about her routine like a well-rehearsed actress. I could see through her facade, though. She was trying to feign innocence, and it was infuriating. Every time I looked at her, I felt that sharp pain of betrayal all over again. I knew I couldn't live like this, pretending that our marriage was fine when it was anything but. I started to gather evidence. I had to take control and protect myself. I remembered the little things, like how she used to leave her phone unlocked, or how she never bothered to close the curtains when she was getting ready in the morning. I began to take notes, jotting down the details of her behavior, the inconsistencies in her stories. I became methodical, almost like an investigator. It was a strange role for me, but I knew I needed to be smart about this. One afternoon, while Laura was out running errands, I took a chance and searched her computer. I figured if she was careless with her phone, maybe she was the same way with her laptop. I found her email logged in, and after a moment of hesitation, I clicked in. It was like opening Pandora's box. I found several emails exchanged between her and Mike, filled with flirtation and plans to meet up. They were scheduled for business lunches that lined up perfectly with the times she claimed to be working late. It confirmed everything I suspected and more. Each line I read felt like a punch to the gut. The words jumped off the screen, taunting me. "I can't wait to feel your hands on me again." One email read. I had to close the laptop before I threw it against the wall. Instead, I took a moment to breathe, to gather my thoughts. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew what I had to do. I contacted a divorce lawyer that evening, setting up a consultation for the following week. I could feel my heart racing with anticipation and anxiety as I outlined my situation to the lawyer. I wanted to know my rights and what the process would entail. The idea of stepping into a courtroom, facing Laura, and revealing her betrayal was terrifying but necessary. I had to look out for myself. I couldn't allow her to manipulate me any longer. That week was exhausting. I worked during the day and spent my evenings compiling evidence, screenshots of the emails, records of her late nights, and notes detailing her lies. Each piece of evidence felt like a small victory, a step closer to regaining my life. I refused to let her see my pain. I was determined to remain calm. The following weekend, Laura decided to throw a small dinner party for friends, trying to maintain the appearance of a happy couple. I played along, putting on a mask of normalcy. It felt like acting in a play where I knew the ending, and it wasn't a happy one. Guests arrived, and I greeted them with a smile, all the while feeling sick inside. I watched Laura pouring drinks and laughing at jokes, and it made my blood boil. How could she pretend like nothing was wrong? As the night progressed, I overheard a conversation between Laura and one of our friends, Sarah. "You know, I've been feeling so lost lately," Laura said, her tone dripping with false sincerity. "I think I might need to just take some time for myself and figure things out. Maybe just move on, you know." The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to say that in front of me, knowing full well what she was doing behind my back. I felt the heat rise in my chest, my fists clenching. I wanted to stand up and shout, to expose her lies right there in front of everyone, but I held back. This was not the right time. I needed to be strategic. I slipped away from the gathering, retreating to my home office to gather my thoughts. I sat in silence, staring at the wall as I tried to quell the storm of emotions inside me. I thought about the way our life had been before. Was any of it real? Every smile, every laugh, every moment felt tainted now. I couldn't let her continue to play me for a fool. As I sat there, I realized that I didn't want to just get divorced. I wanted revenge, not the petty kind, but something that would give me peace of mind. I wanted to take away her control, to flip the script. If she thought she could just walk away from our marriage without consequences, she was sorely mistaken. I would make sure she felt the weight of her actions. I started planning out how I would approach the divorce, what I would say to her, and how I would ensure she knew exactly why we were ending things. It needed to be clear and definitive. I wouldn't let her spin this narrative as if I was the one who failed her. I'd rather burn the whole thing down than let her rewrite the story. The next day, I would meet with the lawyer and take the first concrete step toward reclaiming my life. I was ready to take control of my future and ensure that I wouldn't be a victim of her lies any longer. The meeting with the lawyer the next day was incredibly nerve-wracking. I arrived early, sitting in the sterile, white waiting room, tapping my foot anxiously. It felt surreal that I was here, contemplating the end of my marriage. I couldn't fathom how we had arrived at this point. A few months ago, all I wanted was to build a life with Laura. Now, I was about to dismantle it piece by piece. When I finally got called back, I was greeted by a no-nonsense woman named Corinne. She was professional, confident, and immediately put me at ease. "Let's hear what's going on," she said, looking over her glasses, ready to take notes. I poured out the details, sharing everything. The late nights, the messages, the lies. I could see her expression shift as I recounted Laura's betrayal. "From what you've described, you have a solid case for divorce, especially with the evidence you've gathered," she said. "If she's having an affair, it could definitely influence the settlement." I felt a mix of relief and anger as I spoke. The weight of my emotions was exhausting, but it was cathartic to lay it all out there. I had spent so long bottling everything up, and now it was out in the open. We discussed the next steps, how to file for divorce, what to expect in the coming weeks, and how to protect my finances. Corinne explained the importance of keeping a low profile during the process. "You don't want to tip her off. If she realizes you're serious, she may try to hide more evidence or manipulate the situation," she warned. I nodded, soaking in every word. I had to be smart, methodical, and patient. The thought of confronting Laura again filled me with dread. I needed to keep my composure and not let her see how much this was affecting me. She would try to play the victim, to twist the narrative, but I wouldn't let her. After the meeting, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. I spent the rest of the day at work, trying to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to my marriage. How did we get here? Was there anything I could have done differently? I pushed those thoughts away, knowing they would only lead me down a dark path. That evening when Laura came home, I acted as if everything was normal. I made dinner and we sat together at the table talking about mundane topics. It felt surreal, pretending like I wasn't on the verge of dismantling our entire life. I watched her as she talked about her day, her laughter sounding hollow to me. I wondered how she could be so carefree, knowing what I was planning. After dinner, she suggested we watch a movie. I agreed, but inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was sitting next to a stranger. As we watched the film, I caught myself drifting in and out of reality, thinking about how I would confront her again. I needed to be clear, direct, and unwavering in my resolve. Finally, I decided it was time to have another conversation. I turned to her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Laura, we need to talk again." She looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What now? I thought we were past this." "No, we're not. You can't just brush this under the rug. You're having an affair. I know everything." My voice was firm, and I could see her flinch at the word affair. She sighed, rolling her eyes as if I were the one causing all the drama. "What do you want from me, Jason? I told you it was just a phase. I'm unhappy, and maybe I was looking for something more." I took a deep breath. "That's not an excuse. You've betrayed my trust. You've lied to me over and over again. I'm not going to pretend like this doesn't matter." Her expression shifted from annoyance to defensiveness. "You're making this sound so much worse than it is. I'm not the only one who has made mistakes in this relationship." It was infuriating. "What mistakes are you talking about? I've been here working hard, supporting you. You're the one who chose to cheat, Laura. This is on you." She crossed her arms, a classic defensive stance. "You don't understand what it's like to feel alone. You're so focused on your work and your life that you didn't even notice I was suffering." I felt a surge of frustration. "You didn't even try to talk to me about it. Instead, you sought comfort in another man. How is that fair?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to find something, anything to throw back at me. This wasn't going to end well, and I knew it. "I'm done playing games, Laura," I continued. "I've started the process to file for divorce." Her face went pale, and for the first time I saw genuine shock in her eyes. "You're serious?" "Yes, I am. I can't stay in a marriage where there's no trust and no respect. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine." "I can change. I'll do better," she pleaded, her tone shifting to desperation. I shook my head. "It's too late for that. You've hurt me in ways I can't even begin to explain. I need to move on for my own mental health." Laura opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't want to hear any more excuses. I stood up, feeling a sense of clarity and finality wash over me. "I suggest you start finding a place to stay. I'm not going to continue living this lie." I left the room, my heart racing, but this time it felt different. I felt empowered, like I was finally taking control of my destiny. I knew there would still be hurdles ahead, arguments, heartbreak, and the pain of untangling our lives, but I was ready to face them head-on. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I was taking my power back, and there was no going back now. The days after my confrontation with Laura were a blur. She spent most of her time in denial, hoping that I would simply back down and return to the status quo. I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to play the role of the loving wife while knowing that the foundations of our marriage were crumbling beneath us. It was almost comical how she tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy when everything felt so profoundly broken. Laura started leaving for work earlier and returning later, claiming she had to stay late to catch up. I knew she was trying to avoid facing me head-on, afraid of the consequences of her actions. I took this as my opportunity to prepare for what lay ahead. I spent late nights at home, diving into research on divorce proceedings, custody issues, and financial settlements. I wanted to be as informed as possible to avoid being blindsided. I also spoke with my lawyer, Corinne, regularly. She was a wealth of knowledge and provided me with the tools I needed to navigate this tumultuous time. Each meeting empowered me more, reinforcing my decision to move forward. We discussed strategies to ensure I would be in a strong position during negotiations, especially since I had documented evidence of Laura's infidelity. One evening, I returned home after a long day to find Laura sitting at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face. I paused at the threshold, surprised to see her so vulnerable. This wasn't the woman who had brazenly lied to my face just weeks ago. What happened? I asked, keeping my voice steady, but I was curious about what prompted this sudden display of emotion. "I miss us," she said, her voice shaky. "I know I messed up, but can't we fix this? I'm willing to try. I'll do anything." The desperation in her voice made me feel a pang of sympathy, but I quickly reminded myself of the betrayal that led us here. "Laura, you made your choice. You chose to cheat instead of communicating with me. Trust is broken. It doesn't just magically repair itself." "I was stupid. I let my feelings get the best of me. I didn't think," she pleaded. I felt the anger rising again. "Exactly, you didn't think. You didn't think about me or our marriage. You thought about your own needs and desires. You didn't care how it would affect me." "Please, Jason," she sobbed. "I can't lose you. Let's go to couples therapy. I'll do the work, I promise." "Therapy won't fix the fact that you deliberately chose to betray my trust," I replied firmly. "I can't be in a relationship where I feel like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. I need to protect myself." She launched into another series of excuses and promises, but I couldn't bear to hear any more. I walked away, feeling the weight of the moment heavy on my heart. It was hard to witness someone I once loved so deeply crumble in front of me, but I had to remind myself that this was a journey I needed to embark on alone. As the days turned into weeks, I began to feel more comfortable in my decision to divorce. I started to make plans for my life post-marriage. I hadn't thought much about it before, but I realized I needed a fresh start. I began to think about moving out of the house, maybe even getting a small apartment that would allow me to reclaim my independence. I started to pack up my things that week, sorting through memories both good and bad. I found photos from our early days, trips we had taken together, moments frozen in time that now felt tainted. As I packed, I felt a mix of nostalgia and anger. I had poured so much of myself into our relationship, only to find out it was all built on a shaky foundation. One evening, while sorting through a box of old keepsakes, I came across a letter Laura had written to me on our 5th anniversary. It was filled with heartfelt words about love and commitment. I nearly laughed at the irony. Did she mean any of it? Or had it all been a facade? I folded the letter back into the box, determined to shut that chapter of my life for good. Then came the day of the first official step in the divorce process. I had scheduled the filing, and I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders as I signed those papers. It was a final acknowledgement that this chapter was over. I took a deep breath, feeling both relief and sadness wash over me. As I walked out of the attorney's office, I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection of the glass door. I didn't recognize the man staring back. I looked worn but resolute. I was finally taking control of my life, and while it wasn't easy, it felt necessary. Back home, I found Laura sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "I filed the paperwork," I said simply. She looked at me, her eyes welling with tears again. "You really mean it, don't you?" "Yes," I said firmly. "This isn't something I'm doing lightly. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." Her head dropped, and for a moment the weight of our shared history hung in the air between us. I felt a pang of sorrow for what could have been, but I couldn't let myself fall back into that trap. I had chosen my path, and I needed to stay strong. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she finally said, her voice shaky. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I walked to the bedroom, closing the door behind me. I could hear her quiet sobs from the other side, but I steeled myself against the urge to comfort her. This was a time for boundaries, for self-preservation. I spent the night reflecting on what lay ahead. I knew there would be difficult conversations and confrontations yet to come. There would be divisions of assets and the uncomfortable task of untangling our lives. But I also knew that I was taking steps toward a life that could be mine again, a life without betrayal, without the constant fear of deceit. It was time to lay the groundwork for the next chapter, and even though the road ahead seemed challenging, I felt a spark of hope igniting within me. I was moving forward, and that was all that mattered now. As the days turned into weeks, the reality of my impending divorce began to sink in. The atmosphere in the house changed dramatically. Laura and I had shifted from pretending to be a happy couple to navigating a strange and uncomfortable coexistence. It was surreal to share the same space with someone who had once been my partner in life, but was now more of a stranger than ever. Laura had taken to retreating into her own world. She spent hours holed up in our bedroom, and when she did come out, it was often to throw thinly veiled passive-aggressive remarks at me. I tried to keep my cool, reminding myself that this was part of the process. I had chosen to stand firm in my decisions, and I wouldn't let her guilt trip sway me. One evening, I came home from work to find her sitting at the kitchen table, a glass of wine in hand. The look on her face was a mix of regret and defiance. "Can we talk?" she asked, her tone softer than usual. I could feel my guard go up. "What is it?" I want to understand why this has to be the end. Can't we at least try to work things out?" I sighed, feeling the weight of her words but also the futility of this conversation. "Laura, we've been over this. You made choices that hurt us. I'm not willing to stay in a relationship built on lies." "I know," she replied, tears forming in her eyes. "I was selfish. I didn't appreciate what we had until it was too late. Can't we go to therapy, please?" I shook my head. "Therapy won't erase what you did. This isn't just about fixing things, it's about trust. You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed." There was a long silence, and I could see the realization dawn on her face. I felt bad for her, but at the same time, I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by her emotions. This wasn't about me. It was about what I needed to do to find peace. Days passed, and I focused on my plans for the future. I started looking for apartments, browsing online listings in neighborhoods that had once seemed too far out of reach. Each place I looked at sparked a sense of excitement and possibility. I would finally have a space that was mine, a blank canvas to create a new life. One evening, I visited a lovely little apartment in a quiet part of town. It had plenty of natural light, a cozy kitchen, and a fresh coat of paint that made everything feel new. As I walked around, I envisioned myself living there, free from the shadows of my past. I could almost feel the weight lifting from my shoulders. I put in an application right away. It felt good to take that step. I was finally moving toward a future that I could own. The next day, I received the call confirming that I was approved. I couldn't help but smile. This was my new beginning. Unfortunately, the happiness of finding a new place was short-lived. When I returned home that night, Laura was waiting for me, visibly agitated. "You went to see apartments. You're really going to leave, aren't you?" she accused, her voice sharp. I kept my tone steady. "Yes, I am. I need to find my own space to start over. Why do you have to be so cruel?" she shot back. "You're just running away instead of trying to fix things." "Running away?" I echoed incredulously. You're the one who caused this, you made your choices, and now I'm making mine." Her expression shifted from anger to despair. "I don't want to lose you, Jason. I'm trying to show you that I can change. Please don't do this." I shook my head, my heart heavy. "It's too late. You've broken my trust. I can't risk being hurt again." "But I love you," she yelled, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. People make mistakes." I felt the sting of her words, but I had to remind myself that love wasn't enough to rebuild what was shattered. "This isn't just a simple mistake, Laura. You had an affair. You chose someone else over me. I need to focus on my own healing now." She sat down heavily in a chair, her face buried in her hands. I could hear her muffled cries, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly buried it. I had to stay strong. That night I packed up more of my things, separating out what I would take with me to my new apartment. Each item I placed in a box was a step toward reclaiming my life. Even as I folded clothes and packed books, I felt a sense of liberation. I was shedding the weight of my past and stepping into a future that was mine alone. The next week, I moved into the apartment, and it felt like a breath of fresh air. I spent the first few days unpacking, arranging my belongings in a way that felt comfortable and welcoming. As I placed my favorite art pieces on the wall, I could sense a shift in my spirit. I was creating a space that felt like me, no longer shadowed by betrayal or hurt. I started to focus on my routine, finding solace in the small things. I discovered a local cafe where I could enjoy my morning coffee, and I joined a gym nearby to work out my frustrations. I felt empowered as I embraced this new chapter, reclaiming my identity outside of my marriage. The days turned to weeks, and I found myself settling into my new life. I made new friends, explored new hobbies, and slowly healed from the wounds of the past. I learned to appreciate solitude, to enjoy my own company, and to rediscover what made me happy. Yet there was always that lingering shadow of Laura. I received messages from her occasionally, filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness, but I did my best to ignore them. I had made my choice, and I needed to stick to it. Then came the day when I received a message from her that struck me unexpectedly. "I'm moving out. I've found a place. I just wanted to let you know so it doesn't come as a surprise." I felt a wave of mixed emotions wash over me. Part of me was relieved. She was finally taking steps to move on, but another part felt a pang of loss. We had shared so much together, and seeing her official move brought the finality of our situation crashing down on me. I responded simply with a terse, "Thanks for letting me know." As I put my phone down, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift. Laura was finally moving on, and so was I knew. I still had a long way to go, but I also felt hopeful. I was learning to embrace the unknown, to find joy in the journey ahead. I was no longer defined by my marriage. I was rediscovering who Jason was, and that was a powerful thing. As the weeks turned into months, I found a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. Settling into my new apartment felt like peeling away layers of a weight I had been carrying for years. I surrounded myself with things that brought me joy. A few plants, some artwork that resonated with me, and books I had always wanted to read but never found the time for. Each day was a small step toward healing, and I relished the freedom to create a space that truly felt like mine. I began to make new routines. I joined a local club for hiking enthusiasts, and the fresh air and camaraderie ignited a spark of excitement in my life. I met new people, some of whom had their own stories of heartbreak and resilience. We shared laughs and stories about our lives, and it reminded me that I wasn't alone in this journey. It was refreshing to be around people who understood what it felt like to start over. Still, there were moments when memories of Laura would creep back in. I would hear a song we used to listen to together or pass by a restaurant where we had shared countless meals. Those moments stung, but I had learned to acknowledge the pain without letting it consume me. It was a reminder of how far I had come and how much I had learned about myself. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I decided to go for a hike at a nearby trail I had been eyeing. As I reached the summit, the view was breathtaking, a sprawling landscape of greens and blues. I took a moment to soak it all in, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin. It struck me then I was free. I was no longer defined by my past or the pain that came with it. I had the power to shape my future. Later that week, I received a text from Laura. It was short and to the point. "I hope you're doing well, just wanted to check in." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding as I debated how to respond. There was a time when I would have rushed to reassure her, but now I felt a sense of clarity. I typed a simple response. "I'm doing okay, I hope you are too." Her reply came quickly and I could feel the weight of her words. "I'm trying to move forward, it's hard, but I'm working on it. I hope you can forgive me someday." I took a moment, reflecting on how much had changed. Forgiveness was complicated. While I still felt hurt, I also recognized that holding on to anger would only weigh me down. I appreciate that. I think forgiveness will take time, but I'm focusing on moving forward too. The exchange felt cathartic, a release of the final remnants of our past. I realized I didn't need to carry the bitterness any longer. It was time to let it go. As the seasons changed, so did I. I started experimenting in the kitchen, trying out new recipes and inviting friends over to share meals. It became a joyful ritual, one that filled my home with laughter and warmth, something I had missed for so long. I rediscovered my love for creativity, picking up a paintbrush again after years of neglect. The act of creating, of losing myself in art, became a source of therapy. I eventually began dating again, cautiously at first. Each new connection felt like a step into the unknown, but I was ready to take that leap. I met someone named Mia at a community event, someone who shared my interests and passions. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, and there was a spark of chemistry that reminded me what real connection felt like. Over time, I learned to open my heart again. With Mia, I felt a sense of ease and comfort, something I had thought was lost forever. She respected my past and allowed me the space to heal while still encouraging me to embrace the future. I felt hopeful in a way I hadn't in a long time. One evening, while we were walking along the lake, I shared my story with her, my marriage, the betrayal, and how I had grown from it. To my surprise, she listened intently, offering compassion and understanding. "It's a testament to your strength," she said. "You've taken the hardest path and it's leading you to something beautiful." Her words resonated with me. I had endured the pain, faced betrayal head-on, and emerged stronger. It was a journey I didn't think I would ever have to take, but I was grateful for it. Each step had led me to where I was now. As I stood there looking out over the lake with Mia by my side, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had thrown curveballs, but I had learned to catch them. I had grown, evolved, and embraced the unknown with courage. I wasn't the same person I had been when I first faced Laura's betrayal. I was stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. In the end, I learned that love could be complicated, but it also held the power to heal. It wasn't just about finding the right partner, it was about finding myself again. I had rediscovered joy, laughter, and the beauty of new beginnings. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to embrace it. The heart can heal, and sometimes it takes the breaking to create space for something truly wonderful.